Welcome to this explainer. I'm literally so excited to jump into this today because we're going to completely shatter the way you view carbohydrates. You know, when we hear the word carbs, our brains instantly go to bread, pasta, or sugar, right? We think about diets and calories. But today, we're zooming way past the dinner plate and diving straight into the microscopic world. We are going to look at how carbohydrates are actually the secret, incredibly dense, and complex language of biology. So get ready, because by the end of this, there is no way you'll ever look at a sugar molecule the same way again. Okay, let's dive right into this with a question that honestly might catch you off guard. What is the most abundant biomolecule on Earth? Now, thinking about how insanely complex life is, you'd probably guess proteins, right? Or maybe the fats and lipids making up every single cell membrane. Or, I don't know, maybe even DNA itself. But the actual answer to this question completely sets the stage for everything we're about to unpack.
It's carbohydrates. And we're not talking by just a small margin here. Get this. Every single year, photosynthesis in plants converts more than 100 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide and water into cellulose and other plant products. 100 billion metric tons. To put that in perspective, that is a massive planetary scale operation going on all around us. Carbs are literally the physical foundation of the biological world. But as we're going to see, they do a whole lot more than just take up space. Section 1. Simple sugars and sweetness. All right, so to really get how simple sugars work, we need to move past the basic diet talk and look at the actual physical chemistry of what makes sugar taste sweet to us. This brings us to a concept called stereoisomerism. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but just think of your hands. They've got the same number of fingers attached the exact same way, but they're mirror images of each other. The biological enzymes and sweetness receptors in your body are incredibly specific to 3D shapes. It's like, well, the source material puts this perfectly. Trying to fit the wrong sugar stereoisomer into a biological receptor is exactly like trying to jam your left glove onto your right hand. It just doesn't fit. And because of this extreme 3D specificity, biology can play some really wild tricks on our taste buds. Our sweetness receptors, they're called T1R2 and T1R3, they're looking for very, very specific 3D shapes. Artificial sweeteners basically work by mimicking that perfect 3D shape without bringing any of the calories along for the ride. But nature is the absolute master of this trick. Take the brazine protein, for example. It's isolated from the berries of the ublia vine in Africa, and it hits our sweet receptors so perfectly that it is an astonishing 17,000 times sweeter than regular table sugar. Crazy, right?
Section 2. Energy storage and armor.
Now, what's really interesting here is how linking these simple sugar building blocks together creates wildly different physical realities in nature. Take amylose, for instance. This is a form of starch used for energy storage in plants. It links glucose molecules using what biochemists call an alpha linkage. This makes a coiled helical structure that's super easy to break down. Think of a soft, starchy potato. But then, look at cellulose. It uses the exact same glucose building blocks, but links them with a beta linkage. That microscopic, tiny shift in the bond makes the chain flip back and forth, forming straight, extended, practically unbreakable fibers. Literally, that single, minute change in bond geometry is the difference between a mashed potato and a giant, rigid tree trunk. It's amazing how nature neatly categorizes these incredible builders, basically dividing the labor between plants and animals. For energy storage, plants use starch, while animals, us included, use a highly branched version called glycogen. But for structure, plants rely on that rigid cellulose we were just talking about. And what about bugs, insects, and crustaceans? They use this slight variation called chitin. Chitin actually forms the rigid protective exoskeleton, the armor for nearly 1 million different species of arthropods. We're talking everything from a lobster shell to a beetle casing. Here's a quick, pretty surprising fact about that tough cellulose armor. Most vertebrates, and yeah, that includes humans, completely lack the biological scissors, the specific enzymes, needed to cut that beta linkage in cellulose. We literally cannot digest wood. So you might be wondering, how do termites do it? Well, actually, they can't either. Termites rely entirely on this microscopic symbiotic organism living in their gut called trichonempha. It's the microbe that actually secretes the enzyme to break the wood down. So yeah, termites need microscopic help just to eat your house. Section 3. The secret sugar code. All right, so this is where things get truly mind-blowing. We're moving beyond just physical armor into the realm of pure biological information.
This brings us to a fascinating, cutting-edge field called glycobiology. Basically, it's the study of how complex, branched sugars act as these incredibly dense information carriers inside your body. We are so used to thinking of DNA as the ultimate biological code, right? But sugars, attached to proteins and lipids, collectively known as glycoconjugates, they form an information network on the surface of your cells that is just mind-boggling in its complexity. This really gives us a completely new perspective on biological data. Just compare DNA and glycans. DNA is linear. It's essentially a straight chain made up of just 4 alphabet letters. But glycans, these complex sugar chains, are highly branched. They can connect in multiple different ways, at all sorts of different angles, and they have about 20 different monosaccharide subunits to pick from. So if you take just a short 6-letter sequence of DNA, you get about 4,000 possible combinations. But if you take a 6-unit sugar chain, because of all the branching and linkage options, you have literally billions of possible combinations. Billions! I really want this next thought to sink in. Quote, "The enormously rich structural information in glycans does not merely rival, but far surpasses that of nucleic acids." Think about that. Gram for gram, molecule for molecule, the sugar chains coating the outside of your cells hold a higher density of information than your own genetic code. It's this massive, complex, 3-dimensional language, all written in carbohydrates. So, what does this all mean for you? Why does it matter? Well, because this sugar code dictates your daily health. You know those A, B, and O blood types you're so familiar with? Those are literally just different sugar chains sitting on the surface of your red blood cells. The way your liver knows to pull old, worn-out red blood cells out of circulation, it does that by reading the degrading sugar tags on their surface. These sugars act as cellular destination labels, and as we're about to see, they even guide your immune system to the exact site of an injury. Section 4. Hijacking the sugar code. So to understand how pathogens use this against us, the crucial point is seeing how this communication is supposed to work normally. When you get an infection, your white blood cells, leukocytes, are rushing through your bloodstream at high speeds. How do they know exactly where to stop? First, proteins called selectins on your blood vessel walls act kind of like molecular Velcro, grabbing onto specific sugar chains on the white blood cell. This causes the cell to slow down and physically roll along the capillary wall. Then, a stronger signal stops it dead in its tracks, allowing the white blood cell to squeeze through the wall and fight the infection. It's this beautiful, elegant, sugar-guided braking system. But, of course, there's a dark side. Bacteria and viruses have actually evolved to read the sugar code too. Take Helicobacter pylori, for example. That's the bacterium that causes stomach ulcers. It has a specialized protein that specifically seeks out and binds to a particular sugar chain, an oligosaccharide, found right on the lining of the human stomach. And here is a wild fact. People with blood type O actually have a much higher concentration of this specific sugar chain in their stomach lining. So because of their personal sugar code, they are inherently more susceptible to these bacterial anchors, and for sure, more prone to getting gastric ulcers. And viruses, they are just as devious. Let's look at how the influenza virus completely hacks your cells. Step 1. The flu virus physically attaches to your cells by binding to your surface sugars. Step 2, it enters and totally forces your cell to replicate the virus. But step 3 is the real kicker. To escape and spread to other cells, those brand new viruses would normally get stuck on the exact same host sugars they used to enter in the first place. So they deploy a specific enzyme called neuraminidase. This enzyme acts like a pair of biological scissors, just clipping the sugar tags off your cell so the new viruses can break free and spread the infection like wildfire. But here's the good news. Thanks to our understanding of glycobiology, modern medicine is fighting back. We can actually use the sugar code against the pathogens now. Antiviral drugs like Tamiflu are essentially fake sugars. They're sugar analogs. Tamiflu perfectly mimics the 3D shape of the sugars that the influenza virus wants to clip. So the viral scissors grab the Tamiflu, get permanently jammed, and the newly replicated viruses just stay glued to the infected cell. They literally can't spread. It's an absolute game changer, and it proves the incredible real-world power of understanding this sugar code. And that brings us to the end of our journey today. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. How will you look at the world around you and inside you differently the next time you hear the word carbs? Because it's not just bread, and it's definitely not just fuel. It is the rigid armor of a beetle, the structural majesty of a giant redwood tree, and the impossibly dense secret language that your cells use to communicate every single second of your life. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next explainer.